Welcome to the Auto Fixation Podcast, a loud pedal production with your host Mark Farouk and Matt Powers.
Welcome to another episode of the Auto Fixation Podcast. I'm Mark Farouk. With me is...
Hey Mark, it's Matt Powers with you.
Matt Powers is here as well. This is all part of a production of the Loud Pedal blog. Check us out on social media at The Loud Pedal or on our website, theloudpedalblog.com. So good to see you.
Likewise, Mark. Good to see you, man. We've been both pretty busy, I think. But
it's been a rough week.
It has, both in our day jobs and also a lot of automotive-related news.
There's a lot of news out there. A lot of people feeling some pain.
Some a little more than others.
And wanting to assign blame for the pain.
We're talking about gas prices, of course. And
I noticed this when I'm pulling my aircraft carrier. I mean, my Audi SQ7 in the pump. It was painful before all this.
Yeah, right.
Now I'm thinking about taking out payday loans each time I go to the pump.
I don't even know if that'll give you enough money to fill that car up.
I probably need to do a refinance on my mortgage to pay for gas at this point. But
I texted you when stuff started spiking to ask you, you must be feeling a little pinch there.
You pointed out, how does it feel? How does it feel at 15 miles per gallon on a good day? I just listen to that exhaust sound. Just think, how much should I just pay for that feeling?
Well, it's funny you say that because I was driving the X5, which is a little bit better gas mileage than the SQ7, not much. And I had to do an overtake to get over to get an exit, and I really thought when I put the accelerator down, there's probably a 20-cent cost to that. You can kind of begin to do the calculation in your head now. It is really crazy.
Yeah, I was merging on the freeway a few days ago, and my daughter was in the car, and I kind of floored it. It was open road, and we got on the freeway, and I looked over. I said, "That probably cost me $5."
Exactly. Oh,
yeah.
Man. No, I think we should be slowing down. Maybe that's the takeaway.
You have to change. That's hard. I think we both drive naturally a little
towards the upper end of the speed limit.
Upper end's a little quicker than most. But I will say this: I did spend a few days last week trying to modulate how I drive, trying to think about even down to how I'm applying the throttle.
That is a great point. And actually, I might have mentioned this before, Sharon, my wife, she's a super efficient driver. Now, I didn't say good driver. No, in fairness, Sharon's a good driver. But
you just remembered she listens to this. Right, that's why you're just saved yourself.
But her strength is efficient driving. And I think it's what you're saying. It's modulating the gas, anticipating when you're going to need to brake, and not accelerating into your brake. So that's a good point.
So I have the on my car, and I have a comfort mode, which really softens the suspension and stuff like that, but it makes the throttle a little softer, so you have a lot more give from to maximum. So I spent a few days trying to drive within the speed limit, modulating the throttle, easy on the brakes. Maybe I gained a mile or two a gallon, but I think if you could do it on a consistent basis, you can save a little bit. Sure. It adds up over time. It's still going to be painful when you go to the pump either way, but you can save a little bit. And, it's kind of, I'll say this, once you've drove like crazy person on the freeway or whatever it is, you're driving for fun, spirited driving.
Yes, that's what the manufacturers
spirited
call
driving.
Yeah, come on.
There comes a point, challenge yourself, see how many more miles per gallon you can squeeze out.
That's the thing.
Change your technique.
It's called hyper cruising. There's a subcult of people. It's probably the people you see driving 45 miles an hour in the slow lane.
Yes.
They're hyper driving. They're seeing
those Prius drivers I hate.
You beat me to it. They're all Prius drivers.
So did we just suggest people turn into Prius drivers? This is the worst advice we've ever given. I take it all back.
So I think I had to run my my credit card twice to fill up the X5 the other day because the pump was limited to $100, and I needed to put in more than $100 because I think it was $6.10 or something for premium, which is also my fault for buying a car that requires premium gas, but okay. And it's still, even if you were putting regular in, it was, I think, $5.70 or something. I mean, that's getting up there. It's a decent amount. Although, that said, I don't think we want to like minimize the pain.
Yeah, you mentioned this to me earlier.
There's real pain, but if you look at context, if you look at gas prices historically, factoring in inflation, we're in the ballpark of where we were in like the mid 2000s. There's just, it's the relative gas prices aren't actually that high. And I think, neither of us are geopolitical experts. I'm not, maybe. But there's a lot of factors that go into gas prices. And, there's a lot of folks talking about, the taxes are too high. We should spend gas taxes and stuff like that. The reality is like the amount of money on your gallon of gas that's taxed, it's not exactly nominal, but it ain't that much.
It's a global market.
40 cents. It's a global market. It's the global price of oil. It's causing this. So
everybody wants to blame one particular person, whether it's a president or a political party, and I don't care one way or the other what party that happens to be or what president. Everybody wants to blame someone, but the price of oil is determined. It's traded as a commodity in various markets, and there's a price per barrel, and is largely dictated by the members of OPEC and the global markets.
Exactly.
And I think what a lot of people are forgetting is that, unfortunately, what's happening with Ukraine has coincided with, we had, because of the pandemic, extremely low supply. Extremely low demand. We had a lot of supply. Things have now changed. People came back to work. People are traveling. Traffic, as you can see, anywhere you go is back to even worse than before the pandemic. So now demand has shot up in a very short period of time, and supply has stayed relatively stable. So I guess I say there's not some grand conspiracy by individuals or governments to try to manipulate prices, or it's not the taxes we're paying. It's a global market. And I said this, we were talking earlier, and I said, if you're at the local car show, Cars and Coffee, or you're hanging out with your buds and their European exotic cars, and they start pointing the finger at one person, maybe it's the president. Oh, this is the president did this. It's like, the chances are they've probably made the money to buy the car that they have because they own a tremendous amount of stock in a petroleum company. Don't let people fool you with these finger pointing things. They made money off of this, and they want to blame, they want you to look the other direction.
Totally.
Yeah.
You can afford $150,000.
Yeah, at the low end, that's pretty cheap for a supercar.
Wow, yeah, right. I've not factored in COVID price.
That's right. That's a pretty beat up used Ferrari. But it's also it's a good revelation though. But it also sets the stage where I think you see a new type of elitism that's popped out of this. Is we'll just go buy an EV.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so my choices are $6 gallon gas or drop $80,000 on an EV.
Car.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If that's my choices, thanks for letting me know.
Well, in fairness, Mark, there are more EVs coming on the market at lower price points.
That's true.
You can buy ID4 for what, 40,000?
But have you seen what it looks like?
I was talking to an ID4 driver yesterday. We had a nice conversation. He really likes it. I don't know if he's listening to the podcast. He's here in Sacramento. We shouldn't.
Yeah, I will say this. I will say it is better looking than most, and I have talked to others and seen reviews. People like it.
Yeah, I like it better than the Mustang. I think the Mustang's kind of ridiculous.
It depends on the angle you see it from. It's really dependent on the color of the car and the angle. One that's getting a lot of great reviews is this a Hyundai Ioniq.
Yes.
5, I think it is.
IQ5. No. It's not, yes.
Ioniq 5, I think. Getting you're right. Really future. It looks like a concept car that they actually built.
Art Deco. And
it's
kind of interesting.
And great reviews. I actually know someone that has one, so I'm going to be anxious to take a look at it.
I guess the point, though, going back to gas prices and gas versus, I guess over the long term, increased cost of gas, the actual cost of carbon intensive driving. Maybe it does, begins to affect some behaviors, and it, encourages people who, are kind of on the cusp of maybe buying a car to make an electric car to take a closer look at it, or to kind of like move in that direction. Yeah, and then the more you incentivize people buying those cars new, hopefully Tesla's, there's not going to be much of a secondhand market because shit. And I mean, it's just going to be
how
massive.
could you?
Right, but other cars you would expect, people will then be able to buy them used and get a bigger marketplace.
Yeah, and totally, and it forces you to start thinking long term, because gas prices will come down in some respects, but over the long term they're going to go up. I mean, we're seeing inflation across the board anyway, so we're just going to see this. But I'll say that another thing that this should inspire people to talk about. One of the big problems we have with urban development is sprawl. People live out in the suburbs. They work in a central place, like here in Sacramento. People work downtown. They live out in the suburbs. This is kind of something I've thought about. That brings. This might be a great time to start thinking about alternative work schedules. And back to some, not a complete work at home model like we had to do under the height of COVID, but some sort of modification of that, of 3 days a week, 2 days a week, because I know companies have wanted to rush back to getting people back in the office, but I think if we're going to be realistic as a society about our energy use, we've got to start thinking about how often do you want people burning energy to be in the office when they could work from home?
So this is just a really long way Mark justifying wanting to sit in his living room on a Monday morning in his underwear without showering. Be, quote, working. That's what this is.
I can cruise internet just as easy at home as I can at work. I'm perfectly capable of that. YouTube works in both places. Yeah. So lesson there is it's a pain for a lot of people, right? We have to be realistic about that, but
we have no sympathy for supercar owners.
Exactly.
And people who drive SQ7s.
But what?
And we do have sympathy for the people in Hong Kong who are paying $11 a gallon for their gas.
And that was prior to this, right? That's their normal everyday price. Right. Yeah, so it could always be worse.
It could be a lot worse.
I think the Netherlands was another one.
Yeah, tied with Finland at $9.20, followed closely by Germany at $9.12. I bet you, I don't know so much Hong Kong, but you look at the other countries, infrastructure is pretty good. So you're paying for it. But I guess one of the things is also in these countries when you have such high gas prices and car ownership is really expensive and it's not accessible for everybody. You have like a decent public infrastructure. Public transportation infrastructure, so you can ride the bus, you can train, you have alternatives, So here we don't have that. People are dependent upon their cars.
California, especially Northern California, a little bit better, right? Sacramento, San Francisco, a little bit better, but actually, I kind of take that back that I said that out loud because I was listening to the Bay Area NPR station the other day, last week, and right after they had done a story about, hey, more people need to use public transportation to offset the cost of gas and all these things we've talked about.
Right.
They had a live update that several, I don't want to say for sure, but I think it was 4 or 5 different BART trains were completely shut down. There's some unknown delay. And so the ability to people to commute on those. So I was like, come on, you just did a story saying I would need public transportation. And public transportation was failing at that moment.
Those tracks are like 50, 60 years old. It's
the
lack of investment is awful.
It's maybe, a good way to pay for it. More gas taxes. Which leads into an interesting story that Norway may be one of the first countries in the world to completely phase out the internal combustion engine.
What's the timeline on that?
So by 2025 was their original goal.
Okay.
But now they're saying it could happen later this year.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So I wonder, any idea what happens if you own an internal combustion engine? And maybe the government just pays for you to get an electric car, right? I don't know.
Well, it to be more specific, it's the sales of new. So they think by the end of the year there'll be no more sales, but they would still have some. But if you're driving an ICE powered car on the road now in Norway, you're paying some pretty hefty fuel taxes and roadway taxes. And then you have electric vehicles exempt from a lot of those taxes, especially the fuel taxes. They're not paying those, obviously. And then they get they have huge tax incentives and
okay,
and a smaller and granted a much smaller population than we have.
But and most of their revenue is from most of the country's revenue, like 20% is from oil and gas exploration. So I don't exactly get. I mean, it's great that they're able to do that, but it sort of seems like you're like selling this product that you're exporting to pay for not using it at home.
As long as somebody is,
good for them.
That raises that issue too of our consumption of EVs here as a main solution and ignoring the environmental damage done by the mining for the metals needed for batteries and the emissions from the production of those batteries, because it doesn't happen in California. So we're like, oh, that's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's called, global climate change. It's global is the term. So it all has inputs and outputs.
And I'm not trying to be a purist here. I mean, I'm glad they're doing that. Certainly. Like,
it raises
the headline is not like quite as
issues.
fantastic as it sounds.
But that will be, I think it's a good testing ground, because the article we saw was basically the benefits of this and how great it is. But I think we need to really do a deeper dive in. Okay, but this is great, but what other problems are you seeing? Like what about what's happening to the repair side of that equation? Do they have I don't know what they do in Norway as far as independent repair shops versus dealerships and those dynamics. Makes for a great headline, but I'm sure there's a lot of kind of tough, gory details in there that need to look into.
Also, I have to wonder, look, we just saw Rivian last week announced they're going to up the prices of their cars because of the increased cost of the raw materials that go into the batteries. And it's like, as we speed towards this adoption, which I think both of us fully support, it's really good. What is going to happen to the costs? And these are already expensive vehicles, and will the per unit cost come down because there's economies of scale, or is it going to go up because there's requiring more resources? Certainly don't have the answer to that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, so that's you brought up the Rivian thing. Yeah, that was huge. For anyone that didn't know, people had pre-ordered Rivians. The only way to get one, you have to pre-order. And then because of the increased cost of materials, people were receiving emails that the cost was being adjusted upward.
Were they happy about that?
Yeah, no, I don't think they were happy about that. But it sounded like that there was so much outrage that Rivian backed off.
There was a revolt.
And even it sounded like even a shareholder revolt as well. So let that be. I would say this, like to the public out there, the 3 or 4 that listen to this is, there's push back. It's worth pushing back sometimes when these things happen. Don't be quiet. At this point, I'm sorry that I'm not really sorry personally, but generally sorry. I'm sorry the cost of materials went up, but that's a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, You're the expert company with attorneys and accountants that are supposed to see this stuff on the horizon. I'm just an average consumer. What do I know about all these things?
Consumer/podcast.
That's right. Well, I'm trying to slip under the radar. I didn't want them to know. I don't want them to know our actual expertise.
I am excited. I mean, of all the types of EVs that are on the horizon, it's really the Rivian, the F-150. I mean, we probably covered this ground before already in the podcast, but it's the
Lucid,
even the GMC. Like those electric.
Well, we know you anything but Tesla.
That's it, man.
Right? Anything but Tesla.
I mean, have you seen? There's been a number of stories recently about like build quality, repair stuff. I mean, those stories are going on for a while, but I think we've seen it sort of like tick up about people having exorbitant repair bills. Cars is not very good.
Yeah.
Anything with Tesla.
And I think it's just generally the competition is increasing so much. Mercedes has that EQS that's out. You have various Porsche Taycans.
A buddy of mine was just telling me today he's going to go drive the i4. What's it? The i4, the BMW, the station, the sedan.
I think it's
the
i4. Yeah, that looks really good
so
too.
So evidently you can't get it for about a year, but they've got it at the local dealership here where you can go test drive and then order it. And the price point was not bad. It was like 55 for the base model, 55,000 before the tax credits. So
it's on par with a ICE powered 4 Series. I mean, they're about on par with each other. That's different.
I know.
You've got the Polestar like you have, Polestar 2.
I mean, again, I like the car, but like the knock is the range. Like it's got 240 miles of range if you're at 100%. And so, the Tesla or this BMW, they have 300 miles of range. Or these trucks that are, I'm talking about like 400, close to 400, over 400.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference. And I think if somebody out there really is considering buying an electric vehicle, I think you really have to do some analysis and understanding of what you're going to be using it for, and realize that we were talking earlier about, how you can affect your gas mileage by the way you drive. It's your range on the electric vehicle is heavily affected by the way you drive. So you have to be prepared for that. And my buddy was going to look at the i4. We were talking about that, like, if it says 300 miles, but if you drive up the mountains and you're on the gas the whole time, like you're not
drive like we do.
Yeah, you ain't getting 300 miles. So, you do have to.
Well, it's just like miles per gallon ratings. Those are determined based on ideal driving conditions, very moderate driving styles. And the reality is always you get much less than what's advertised. And so it's the same for EVs. But I always go back to this point. So a lot of people have range anxiety when the research kind of shows that we do most of our driving in a very short area around our homes.
You are 100% correct. And we notice that too. Like most of the day-to-day driving is fine.
Just the road trip, but you happen to have a graveyard of European cars in your front yard that you can choose from when they're running. When they're running.
I was telling you earlier, Mark, I'm at 75%. 3 out of my 4 cars right now are running, so it's trending in the right direction.
Oh, it's great. And just more about not necessarily EVs, but there's a chip, more in the chip shortage front. Which is ongoing on just about everything. And by the way, there's like another COVID wave in parts of China that produces a lot of these microchips. So this shortage, whether it be on chips and other technological things, it's gonna go on for quite a while, unfortunately.
So you think prices for cars are probably going to stay high?
I think they're going to stay high,
if not even potentially go up.
I think they're going to stay high, which because of that, I think we'll reach a point, or we're at that point where the price of cars is such where if you're going to spend that much, maybe it is time to realistically consider, is it time to buy that EV that's a little bit more expensive? Because they're kind of almost the same now. I mean, it's still ridiculous. I mean, Ford now is planning to ship cars and trucks without various software parts until the chips come in.
And then they'll like retrofit it.
Yeah, then they'll retrofit them. Who knows when? I'll tell you, I'm still waiting for the second key for my Audi that's supposed to be here at some point this year. Who knows when that's going to happen?
I'm so sorry for you, Mark.
That's right. I'm missing the second key.
Key. Actually, that could be a real thing. I mean, if you misplace it, you are kind of...
You're done, yeah.
Do you have an app? Do you have an app that you can use?
There is an app. I can unlock the car, but I can't start it. Yeah, so... Even the salesman was like, well, so I don't have a second key, but I have the key, what looks like a traditional key that will open the door. Okay. And the salesman gave it to me. He's like, we can use this. I'm like, but how am I going to start it? And he was kind of funny. He was like, well, you got to figure out the next part. All right, thanks. Yeah. So missing that key, I mean, I really feel like, I feel like, but how am I going to start it? And he was kind of funny. He was like, well, you got to figure out the next part. All right, thanks. Yeah. So missing that key, I mean, I really feel like, I feel like I'm trying to think of what awful category to put myself into right now. I feel so downtrodden without my second key for my Audi. I'm a man of the people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like we got World War III in Europe, and Mark's concern is his second key. Oh my god! Oh my god!
So moving on. So something exciting happening this weekend. First race of the Formula One season.
I've heard.
But before that, recently we've all had an opportunity to look back at last season in all of its glory. With been watching how most people these days consume Formula One, which is Netflix's Drive to Survive.
Very, very cool series. I like it. I mean, it's some manufactured controversy, but like it's cool, and it's a good highlight of big events of last year. So
well, I'm impressed with the level of access they've been able to get. That's incredible. But you're right; it is a bit Jerry Springer, Maury Povich like at times. Like you can see, like if you follow. I mean, I really followed last season pretty closely, more so than I had in previous seasons. And I when I watch Drive to Survive, I see where they take a lot of liberties with some of the drama. Some of it not manufactured, some of it is very dramatic. And
probably Gunter Steiner calling what's his face Nikita Mazepin. I don't know if we can say the profanities on radio, but it was
he got
expletive laden
he's
accusations.
He's a great, and he was right.
Yeah.
Nikita Mazepin. So here I'm going to say something that's going to sound controversial, but there's been one benefit of Russia's aggression in Ukraine is that the Haas F1 team, who, because of sanctions and other things, had to tell poor Nikita Mazepin to bugger off, as they would say
in England. Yep.
If you didn't pay, I mean, Haas is. I'm surprised they're even still on the grid. They barely were there last year.
I know,
but Nikita in particular, just simply awful,
terrible.
And his dad was the major sponsor funder. He was just as awful. Neither one of them had any business being near the Formula One grid. And
I think he finished like second or third or fourth in like F2 or F3.
Yeah.
You know, like he was like not remarkable.
Yeah. He only got there, because of that major amount of money that they were able to inject. But
it helps when your dad's an oligarch. And,
that helps. Probably getting his yacht seized as we speak. But his skill is clearly not there, but his attitude he just expected to go out and just win, and he was getting whipped by his teammate Mick Schumacher, who comes with the baggage of that name behind him and that pressure.
Totally.
Watching Drive to, but it will, I think episode 4 or 5, it's almost a whole episode on Haas. So great, in spite of the drama, it's great PR for them. I mean, a team in the back of the grid getting 45 minutes worth of airtime on Netflix.
Did you notice it was kind of strange? I don't know if they had done it in the past, but it seemed like, I think it was maybe the second or third episode. I think they covered Monaco from two different perspectives.
Yes.
So I think there was like the Red Bull, and then there was the Ferrari perspective to tell the kind of like the arc of the different teams.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little bit strange. I felt like on the like subsequent episode, we were sort of like going back, and I thought, did I like miss something? It was kind of a weird formatting that they did. But
there's been some comments online showing kind of the creative editing they've done, where the timelines are kind of chopped up a different way, and it just and more to have the drama, and it's kind of filtering down. Whereas now some of the drivers that participated, I think Lando Norris is one who's saying, I don't know if I'd do that again.
Interesting,
because
they play up that tension between him and Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, and both of them have said, that's not really, we get along fine. There's not really tension. So
there's like this awkward scene of like Ricciardo teasing him for crashing, and he's denying that he's ever had a crash, and they kind of like play off. Of that
and it's just like, that's why I kind of say it's kind of like this Jerry Springer approach to racing. But
it's also funny, some of the radio communications, like clearly it's not sequential. Like they have like the engineer talking to the driver like right before the lights are about to go out, and I think they're concentrated. Whatever. We're nitpicking, and we're being obnoxious, but overall, it's a good series.
But how about that Will Buxton, F1 commentator Will Buxton? You got to give him some credit.
Did you know that if you qualify first, that means that everybody starts behind you?
What?
I know, crazy.
That's incredible. That is incredible. He also gave us this gem that if you win the race, you score the most points. I don't know if anybody knew that. That is the type of hard-hitting, analytical commentary that Will Buxton brings to Formula One.
It makes me feel like if he can do it, so too.
Oh, absolutely.
We
Absolutely. I mean, we're making a podcast right now. It's just they're just it's just so his commentary. It's so campy and he says it's so serious.
I know.
So serious.
I know.
Like he has just dropped a truth bomb on everyone. Hey, if you finish first, you score the most points. But it's a good show. So the season starts qualifying tomorrow in Bahrain, the race on Sunday. Do you believe at all Mercedes, their claims, we're slow and we're not going to be that fast?
I think it's more important what others in F1 think, and I think there's a lot of skepticism within F1. That's true. And so
it seems like the tactic they do every year. Oh, we're not very fast, and then
exactly.
I'm more interested in who's going to kind of move up to challenge.
So what are you thinking? I mean, how do you see this the year?
I think
who looks quick, who would be the team to watch?
Yeah, from what I've seen, I mean, clearly Red Bull's still there, still up front. I think you can never discount Mercedes. I will say this, preseason testing doesn't really say too much because you never know based on the times, fuel loads, tires, all these factors.
They can sandbag.
Yeah, and they do it, and they admit to it. Like, we're not going to show our hand.
Yep.
I think Ferrari has probably moved up a few spots from kind of what I'm saying.
As a Ferrari fanboy, you must be
I
feeling good about that.
I do, but I'm also prepared to be disappointed as I've been so often. But it kind of seems that, they've been in this tussle with McLaren, and I think they've kind of pulled ahead, but who knows, we could be completely wrong. And I don't know, like the AlphaTauri team, Pierre Gasly put up the fastest time in free practice one from today.
Oh, wow.
But for all we know, he was running like one lap of fuel and had on ultra soft tires. We don't know what that reveals. But I'm hopeful. Ferrari looks strong. But I will say this, going back to Drive to Survive and what it kind of reveals. I've always and will still criticize Hamilton for his complaining and whining on the radio. But I've never heard him lose his emotions completely and just completely lose it. But watching Drive to Survive, most of the grid, most of these guys lose it on the radio. And I started thinking, never heard a world champion completely lose it.
Yeah, interesting. There's correlation there.
I think there's correlation to keep it. Even Max Verstappen, when things were not going well or he got almost killed at the British Grand Prix when Hamilton punted him off. They'll complain and sometimes criticize their teammate, but some of the guys, I thought of this because we're talking about Ferrari, because Charles Leclerc gets on the radio sometimes and freaks out about things. Yeah. I start to feel like these guys that just freak out big time, I'm not sure if they're world champions or not.
Interesting. Yeah. Right.
I could be completely wrong, but I feel like that's a big part of it, is being able to keep your emotions under control.
That's right. And I mean, maybe that speaks to why Hamilton is sometimes able to come back from a less than good situation in races. He's able to the overtakes. He doesn't give up, and he's too rattled. Doesn't help to have a really fast car too. But
that's great. I want to, and I want him to continue doing well, because I want him to get beat while he's doing well. I don't want it to be, the car wasn't right and he's driving a bad car, so they can use that excuse. I want everyone to be at their top level so he can be beat.
We should go into that a little bit. I know we've gone on a little too long here on F1 already, but when we had Farouk on, he was talking about, how he respects
Farouk, guy from Sonoma Drift.
Thank you. How he respects Hamilton and for what Hamilton's been able to do in the sport and not coming from money. And I think when we've talked about Hamilton in the past, maybe it sounded like we didn't appreciate that, or, we were shitting on him and, didn't recognize some of the things that he's done. I think Farouk raised a really good point that what he's done is very impressive, and to come from very humble roots, and parents, especially his dad, really sacrificed to get karting and things like that.
Yeah.
And he's really, nobody's given him anything.
Except for that great McLaren contract he got when he was 13 years old. I think he was 13 or 14 and gets signed by McLaren to race at their junior formulas. But he had to work hard to get to that point.
And it was based on talent.
Yeah.
And there's undoubtedly talent.
Exactly.
So I don't want to speak, but I think our issue probably he's a little bit now these days, a little bit whiny, a little bit like focused on stuff off the track with ridiculous clothes that he's wearing. Is like clearly not so genuine appreciation of the fans when he's always on the podium. He wants to thank all the fans, and he's just, to me, just sounds like so scripted and not authentic. I don't know. That's kind of my issue with him. But I think that's one thing, and I can still recognize the fact that what he's done is very impressive.
Yeah. Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag. Exactly. Come on, man. God does not care if you finished first on this freaking British GP. I don't know.
But the Queen cares.
Yeah,
and that's pretty
true.
close.
That is true.
That's pretty close.
That is true.
Yeah. So I think we've probably run this into the ground, but yeah, watch. By the time you hear this, maybe the race will have already occurred. I don't know. It depends on when I get this uploaded. If I do it this weekend or I wait till next week. So
yeah,
be surprised like the rest of us.
Yeah. All right. Nice chatting, Mark.
Yep. I think that's it.
And
thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
See you next time.